I would say there's three things for sure today. The sun is gonna shine, the wind is gonna blow, and Big Dave's gonna go forward.
Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. Unfortunately, today is going to be kind of a sad vlog because I heard that Dave Parker passed away. For those of you that don't know who Dave Parker is, when I was a kid, he was one of the first baseball players I ever remember, and he was my favorite player as a kid. And about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I got in touch with somebody that knew Dave and told them that, and they actually made it happen that I would get to interview Dave on my channel. And so as a tribute to Dave, I had went out and he had told me a story about how he got signed to the Pittsburgh Pirates out of high school. And I went out and filmed where that happened, where he took the tryout, because I had heard it was going to be demolished, and I've just never used that footage. So today I'm going to share some of the interview with Dave that I made with him. Very well may be one of the last sit-down interviews he ever did. And of course he was suffering with Parkinson's, and so you can see that in the video. But we're going to show some of Dave's interview. I'm going to show you where and tell you a little bit of the story of how he did the tryout. And then I'll end it by showing his childhood home and where they named the street after him in Cincinnati. Daze with Jordan the Lion, paying tribute to the great Dave Parker, who just in 1 month was going to be officially inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, which was his dream, and he did not get to live to give his speech, sadly. We're in Dave Parker's old neighborhood. If you're a fan of baseball or just great athletes, this is where he grew up. Here's our spot, Mr. Jean's Doghouse. If you read Dave Parker's book, he's been coming here his whole life, and a lot of the most important moments and decisions of his life he made here with his friends, having a hot dog, hanging out in high school. Dave lived in this neighborhood, so he could just walk here all the time, and they ended up, as you saw at the beginning of the video, naming a street after him. Now, he also talks about playing baseball when he was young, and just like, well, playing football and baseball. That was actually in this field you can see from the parking lot. This playground back here, that was where he developed all his skills as a young man. So the difference between the Mr. Jeans and like a Skyline is that these are king-size dogs instead of short dogs. Skyline and Gold Star usually use shorter dogs. So they took a photo of Dave out here when they memorialized the street, and he was right there with George Foster and some of his buddies, and then the mayor and all those people. So congratulations, Dave Parker. So I think this is where Dave Parker grew up, because when I was at Mr. Jean's, I was asking where the street was because it's not on any maps yet. The lady said, oh, I actually live on that street. And she said, it's Borden. And she said he's the second house on the left. So that was his childhood home growing up. That's pretty cool to finally find out. Dave was supposed to come out here and do this with me at one point, and his health has just been so bad the times that I've been in town, we just haven't got to do it. And I read in Dave's book that during one of the baseball strikes, he was supposed to fight Muhammad Ali in an exhibition. Maybe we can get him to talk about that today. Dave Parker was a 7-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion for the We Are Family Pirates of 1979 and the Oakland A's of 1989. He was the National League MVP, 3-time Gold Glove Award winner, 3-time Silver Slugger Award winner, 2-time National League batting champion, National League RBI leader, Pirates Hall of Famer, Cincinnati Reds Hall of Famer, several minor league baseball Hall of Fames, the Cincinnati High School Hall of Fame. Well, here you are, Dave, my childhood hero. We just got to have lunch together, and I got to pump you full of questions. So now I get to share some of those questions with our fans here. I'm amazed by you, Dave, because you never thought you were going to be a professional baseball player, and yet you turned out to be one of the greatest players of the entire 70s, if not the best player of the 70s. What was your dream growing up?
It was to play for one of the professional teams in the city of Cincinnati. And it didn't make any difference if it was football or baseball. I had a dream of doing that.
Because you played 3 sports when you were growing up, didn't you?
Right.
Were you good at all of them?
Yeah.
And the Bengals had just become a franchise when you were like a senior, right?
Yeah, it was about that time.
How good of a football player were you really?
I was 6'4", 220, and had outstanding speed, moves. I was a good football player. I could have played at any college, but I hurt my knee my senior year.
How bad did you hurt your knee?
I tore the cartilage in 5 places.
So you end up having to have surgery and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. In my day, when you had surgery, they didn't have all the technology they have now. And it cost me my dream because I wanted to play football.
And you had a lot of scholarships too, right?
Right.
Who was one of your scholarships to?
I walked on because I tore my knee up and lost all my scouts, high school scouts, baseball scouts. I lost all that.
So then you end up, from what I read in your book, you ended up having the surgery, but your high school basketball team wasn't doing so great, so you decided you wanted to come back early. Is that what happened?
Well, I had hurt my knee, and I was just trying to get back to play basketball. And my knee was hurt, and I couldn't do it, but I finally tried about halfway through the season.
And the crazy thing, that I read was that you said you found out when you were a senior, you thought you were going to be playing football, you thought you had all this ahead of you, and then you find out you're probably not going to play football, and you have a child on the way. That had to be pretty stressful for you, I would think.
Well, I worked, took care of my kid. My father made it be known that that would be my responsibility. And he made sure that happened.
What kind of job did you have to support your kid?
It was a porch swing chain company. They made a chain for the porch swing.
Did you enjoy that job at all?
It was fun. It was my first job, and it was in walking distance, and it taught me responsibility immediately.
Now, you also worked at Crosley Field, didn't you?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about how you made a little bit of money there?
Well, I used to hustle at Crosley Field. I would get foul balls and sell them to the fans. And Crosley Field was one of my main hustles. I played stick ball against the walls of Crosley Field.
Now, you had a couple of players come out and scold you for playing out there, didn't you? Can you tell me that story?
So Frank Robinson, we used to watch him come in, him and Vader Pinson. They had these Thunderbirds with the porthole windows. And we used to see them, and we'd hustle balls until they got to the ballpark. And we would run and chase the cars. And everybody wanted Frank to sign autographs. And I said, give me something I could play with. And I requested a baseball, and he gave me a glove. And I wish to the day that I had that glove.
That's pretty cool that Frank Robinson would give you some baseball equipment. Now, you used to go in, and I read, like, one of the stories I heard, you said you remember seeing like Johnny Bench play as a rookie when you worked inside Crosley, also selling popcorn or something.
Yeah, I was a vendor. I tried to sell ice cream and lemonade on hot days, and at night I tried to sell hot dogs and popcorn.
And you also got to watch a lot of Reds baseball too, probably.
It hurt sales because I was doing that.
Now, you tried out for the Reds at one point, and I was hoping maybe you could tell us that story and why you turned them down.
Well, I went to this workout with a guy by the name of Connie Warren, who was an outstanding athlete. He was a good pitcher and was an outstanding basketball player. He just recently passed away. But Connie and I went down to the workout, and Connie pitched. I caught, ran the 60-yard dash, got time, and they was impressed with us. I was leaving, and he said, "Hey, where you guys going?" And I said, "I'm leaving." He said, "Don't go nowhere, we want to sign you." And I replied, "You can't sign us. You can't sign us. We're in the 10th grade."
So you had impressed the Reds players and everybody there at just being in 10th grade. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, we were big guys, and we were good at what we did. We had a coach that owned the delicatessen in one of the stores in the neighborhood, and he had played minor league ball. So we got the foundation of the game from Mr. Hudson.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, you couldn't, like what you discussed, you were good at all three sports, but you ended up getting drafted by the Pirates. Do you want to talk about how that happened and how, I know you were supposed to be in school that day and you ended up making a decision.
Well, I went to school and did an exam. So I finished my exam and I found out that the Pirates were in town. They were up in Columbus. And I had a teacher that I asked, could I go to this workout? And he said, "No, you got to stay here." And I said, "Well, you ain't going to blow this opportunity. I'm going to this workout." So I kind of bucked the teacher. I went to the workout, and I was there as a catcher, and I ran the 60 in 6'8", and that was slow. And I went, dealt with the workout, was with a scout named Wendell. I don't remember his last name, but he was in charge of the people from Cincinnati. And Wendell contacted me about 2 days later and told me that the Pirates wanted to sign me. So that's how I got with the Pirates.
Now we're going to drive out to where the old coach, the old man that took Dave and Flowers from the school from Quarter Tech to the Pittsburgh Pirates tryout, gave him some, as Dave described it, almost inedible sandwiches for the 90-minute drive. Now when I looked it up, it's actually called Cooper's Field, and they're getting ready to demolish it. So it was even more important that we go now than ever. At the time, it was the AAA home of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So it was called Jet Stadium, I believe. And then for years, when I went as a kid, it was called Cooper Stadium. So this is all that's left. This was the third base line. I guess the city has voted recently to do something with it. I think they're gonna keep as much of it as they can and do something with it. But if this was the third base line, the field was right in front of us. And Dave said that they pulled up in the parking lot, which would have been straight through there. And the guy who brought him was like, hurry up, you guys got to get in there. I hope you didn't waste my time, because they were racing to get here. They had to be here when the tryout started and everything. So Dave said that he and Flowers came in here and they started having him do running drills and hitting drills and everything. And the only real downside to Dave was that, you know, he had 3 knee surgeries his senior year. So it's like he was 6'4" or 6'6", I forget how tall he was, 220-pound catcher. So he had a great arm to throw people out, but they were worried, you know, that's a little big for a catcher, especially a guy who's had 3 knee surgeries. So he had his tryout here. They did the whole tryout and everything. He and Flowers were racing because they would always race in Cumminsville. And they were racing here while they were getting their running speeds and everything. And when they left, they went out to the car. And they said they were waiting, and the old guy, the old bird dog who had brought him out here, Dave said he could hardly contain his glee. The guy could. And he said, "Boys, you didn't waste my time out here today." And then Flowers ended up, of course, getting drafted by the Cleveland Indians, and the Pittsburgh Pirates ended up drafting Dave. And when Dave showed up for his first day, he had his catcher's mitt, and they said, "You're not going to need that anymore. You're not a catcher anymore. You're going to join the outfielders." And that's where it all started for him in the outfield. I'm not going any closer because they have a big fence and everything that says no trespassing, and I just figured, you know, they just voted on what to do with this like a month or 2 ago, so I did not want to draw any attention or trespass or anything like that. But kind of cool to see the old stands here. When this would have been 1970 when he had his tryout, 69 maybe even. The Pirates moved out of here in 70. So when I came with my grandpa as a kid, we saw the Yankees here. This was the Yankees farm team. They were called the Columbus Clippers at the time. You can kind of almost tell where the warning track must have been out here. And I think up until recent years, it was the Cleveland Indians farm system. Not sure when they closed this all down, but this is really sad to see. I remember as a kid coming here and seeing like big signs outside of notable Yankees that had played here. They said Don Mattingly and Dave Righetti. This is all that's left of what was once Jet Stadium and then Cooper Stadium. This is the third baseline. Some of the stands, only the third base side of stands remains. So here are the business and ticket offices that still remain. I think they're gonna save that. And then you can see the old Cooper Stadium sign right up there. This place had been here since 1935. And you said there were like 500 people probably at that tryout when you saw it?
No, that was after I had signed.
Oh, that was Pirate City in spring training, right?
Right.
So tell me about that. You're now going in, you're a catcher, and you're going into the Pirates with Willie Stargell, Manny Sanguin, Roberto Clemente are all on the team there, and you're just convinced you're going to make the team right away, right?
No, I followed the minor league system. I was pulled out, and they liked me as a player. And when we got together and we all ran and threw and did everything together, they separated me from a lot of the guys that was there. And I went out and worked out, and I just kept sticking out like a sore thumb. They kept moving me to various stations, and they decided that they wanted me to be a part of the organization. So that's how I signed with the Pirates.
Now, at what point, how far into your career with the Pirates in the system, how long did it take you to make it to the major league level? Were you actually a Pittsburgh Pirate?
It took me 3.5 years. I felt I should have been there at 19, but I went to the big leagues at 21.
And you had started out a catcher, and they converted you to an outfielder. But I had heard that story that when Clemente saw you, he said, "There's my replacement." Did you know about that?
No. I found out about that later.
That's got to be quite a compliment to know that he sees that in you, though, doesn't it? Were you a Clemente fan, or?
Well, when you saw Robbie walking around the camp, you know, you right away look and see who it is. He was the great one. And he was definitely great. And I just looked at him in awe because he was probably the best outfielder in baseball at the time.
And then you end up becoming an outfielder, and you pretty much, it was, you know, right after he passed away, you become the talk of the town, would you say? I mean, Willie was always there, but you were kind of the boisterous one. How did people receive that when you came out and were, you know, in 75 even, you were looking like, what, you were third in the MVP in 75?
Yeah, I was third.
How were you received by the Pirates fans? Did they like you right away, or?
They liked me. I was producing. When you're producing, you get people to like you. And I was doing extremely well, and people identified that.
Was it hard for you? Did you find playing at the major league level difficult, or was it just like a walk in the park, or how'd you feel about that? Against the other competition you'd ever played against, I guess.
Well, I was going to compete. I just was competing. I was competing against the pitcher, against the guy that was holding down my position, if it was one. I just was one of those guys that loved to compete.
And you were good at it, too. Do you mind telling, bragging about yourself a little bit? You were MVP, two-time batting champ. Can you tell us all the other things that you did?
Well, I was in 7 All-Star games.
And you said it should have been 9.
Yeah, I chose not to participate in 2. But I just love being a guy that had success. My father told me, win everything at least once. And I tried to win everything.
Yeah, you sure did. So it was like 1 MVP, 2 batting championships, 5 Silver Sluggers, was it? And 5 Gold Gloves?
Something like that.
2 World Series championships. I didn't know this until today. You told me you were the first home run derby champion. I mean, you're in several Hall of Fames, and the only one you're not in is the Baseball Hall of Fame, which I'll never understand, because to me, you know, I was telling you this, several of my friends say, how do you have a guy who's the best player for like 5 years not in the Hall of Fame? Not hardly anybody can ever say you're the best across the board, and you were like a full-on 5-tool player.
Well, they always emphasized me as being a 5-tool player, and I just continued to play. I wanted to win as many things as I could, and I wanted to do it as flashy as I could, because I was a flashy player.
And you were a big fan of Muhammad Ali, so you always got that comparison as being the Muhammad Ali of baseball. Did you like that, or did you not like being compared to Muhammad Ali?
Well, anytime you compare it to Ali, who was the greatest, you take that proudly. So Ali being identified to the Ali of baseball was something I wore proudly.
Now, you were supposed to, I heard a rumor you were going to do an exhibition fight with him. Is that true?
Yeah, we were supposed to put together a boxing match. And we went on strike before it happened.
Oh, Major League Baseball did, right?
No, it was United Negro College Fund.
Oh, really?
Right. That's what it was supposed to be for.
Oh, okay. Okay. But I mean, the strike you were talking about, there was a baseball strike, right?
Right.
And did that affect, because you had just, one of the other amazing things that you did, you were like the first, or if not the first, the second $1 million player per year. And that was huge. Then you have a strike. Did people hold that against you, that you were making a lot of money and then the players were going on strike? I know they tend to like always lash out at the that kind of stuff. They lash out at the players instead of the owners for some reason sometimes.
Well, some people didn't like it. Some people didn't like the fact that I didn't apologize for my success. I felt like I had earned my way in the major leagues, so I didn't apologize for the success I had.
As you shouldn't. That's one of the things I was taught was if you're good at something, you should be allowed to enjoy the benefits of it. And you were telling me you had several cars, because one of the things I wondered was, what did you do in the off time when you weren't playing baseball? What did you do with your off time being a millionaire who's World Series champ, batting champ, all-star, MVP? What does a guy like that do with his days?
I went to visit my hometown. I went to Cincinnati, see my mother 2 or 3 times in the off season, and I would leave early enough for spring training to visit my mom and dad. So I spent a lot of time in the place I grew up in.
That's really cool. And I read that you took it as a big badge of honor for you to, when you would go play other places, you would take young players under your wing and be kind of like a coach, father figure, just a real good influence on a lot of the young players.
Well, I know when Cal Daniels and them first came to the major league, I made it my business to make sure they had the proper attire, bought them sport coats to wear on the plane. But I just felt like it was the proper thing to do. Stargell did it for me, and I kind of took that on as one of the things that I would do for young players.
So at the end, you had a long career. I mean, you played 20 plus seasons, I would say?
19.
19? You ended up staying in baseball for a long time as batting coach, bench coach, things like that. Did you ever see yourself as wanting to be a manager?
No, I didn't. I wasn't thinking about that at the time. But if the opportunity would have came by, I would have probably took it.
Is there anything in baseball or your life that you didn't get to do yet that you'd still like to do, or anything that you kind of wish you would have done?
I like to participate in teaching young players the fundamentals of baseball, because the fundamentals are shot. Guys are missing the cutoff man. Baseball is that's not played the way it was when I was a young player.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like careers don't last as long either. I feel like guys are only in the league for less than 10 years. There's so much competition now.
Well, they don't keep ball players. You don't find a player that play for a team 6 years, 10 years. They usually gone the next year.
Now it's like about 10 years that you found out that you have Parkinson's disease. How have you used that to continue going on? I noticed you were able to come out and hang out with me today. You don't seem to let it slow you down. You're not confined to a house or anything.
No, I try not to let it stop me. I just look at Parkinson's as being another obstacle that I got to compete with and hopefully conquer.
And you do a lot, I noticed, to raise. That's how I found you, is you do a lot of fundraising for people that are not only living with Parkinson's, but for the research and for the people that help care for them and their education, learning how to properly care for people. Do you want to talk about your foundation and maybe the golf outing that you guys do every year?
Yeah, we do a golf outing every year. And it's to raise money for Parkinson's research. And I think I'm in my 7th year. Is that right, Doug? Ninth year.
That's amazing. Probably raised a lot of money and done a lot of good with that. And I like that you're always continuing on and doing something else. And I still see you at the ballpark. I've seen you at Pirates games, and you still an avid sports fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I go see it as much as I can, but I don't get out there as much as I used to. I used to go to about 7 games a year, and I'm real short of that now.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can change that in the future. You never know. Like you said, there's always research being done. I'm hoping that something will, break through what we found, and we'll get to see you doing that kind of stuff again. But man, you made my dream come true getting to meet you, Dave. I've wanted to meet you my whole life. You mean so much to me and how this all came about. But man, thank you for being like such an amazing guy. And one of the things I didn't mention this, as I was telling you, some of my all-time favorite baseball photos were photos of you. Like you are iconic in the baseball photography world. There's a photo of you smoking a cigarette in the dugout and with your sledgehammer, and when you had a fractured face, you wore a hockey mask, and you were telling me a funny story about Joe Morgan in that hockey mask. Can you tell those guys that?
Joe didn't like me wearing the mask. He thought it gave me an unfair advantage. But I was bigger than Joe anyway. I had an advantage.
And you said you ended up taking the mask off and throwing it at him or something?
No, I took the mask off because he was complaining. I was at first base. And I took the mask off and threw it over in our dugout and told the bad boy to bring me a helmet, a regular helmet. And just so happened, it was a ground ball hit to Concepcion, and Joe had to try to turn 2, and I almost got him. I was very physical with it.
You were trying to take him out anyway, even without the mask.
Right.
You said you guys never talked after that, huh?
We didn't talk for a while.
You've always had a great sense of humor, Dave. Can you tell me, just in closing, some of your famous phrases that you were known for? I've heard several.
Well, one I used to use on weekends when I was on my way to the ballpark. I would say there's 3 things for sure today. The sun is going to shine, the wind is going to blow, and Big Dave's going to go 4 for 4.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dave.